because I was reading an article in Vanity Fair with Colbert not too long ago, and he had mentioned your name and basically said that you had taught him to love the bomb.
Yeah.
When did you learn to love it?
Because I did so many shows. I mean, when you start off, you're not very good, or you just don't know if you're good. So I started doing live shows almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were really terrible and very painful because of that. And I just learned to go on, and people start laughing at your pain, right?
Right.
You tell them the shit that's going on with you, and that's what they start laughing at.
Sure.
So that's what I learned, and that's what I tried to pass on to him. Because that group, they're brand new. Farley was in that group, and Paul Danello, Amy Sedaris, really great kids. And a couple of them were trying to perform, right? Trying to make the audience laugh, right?
Yeah.
And my experience was they need to land with you, the individual, in order to go on the journey with you.
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Hello.
Hey.
So now my camera's so low, I'm getting the top of the back of the computer.
I forgot to mention Jeff is coming from a C-SPAN video room. So just we're glad you could do it. How are you guys?
From a cabin that we don't know where it is.
From an undisclosed location.
It's underground. It's one of those.
Yeah.
He may have to flee at any minute, so don't.
It does look like a scene where like somebody's gonna bust through the door on the left-hand side.
Yep.
Just
could happen.
him.
You know, I interviewed Dean Haglin in this garage.
Really?
Yeah, from X-Files.
Wow. How was that?
It was fun. I mean, I know him. He improvises sometimes, but I don't know what happened, how I got him in here, but I'm poor man's Mark. What's Mark Maron?
Mark Maron out of the garage. Yeah.
I never distribute the videos. I just give them back to the comedians. So.
Oh wow! Oh my God! You got to put those out there. That's
I
great.
have Rick Overton and
love
Hagen.
Rick.
Yeah.
Nice. Met Rick with you guys too. That was one of the cool things about when I moved out to LA and I was living there for a couple of years. You guys were one of the first people who were really nice to me and let me come out and do stand-up at Fanatic Salon, and then let me sit in the back and just watch you guys improvise and put on shows and stuff. And then Jane also helped me out with auditions. So I feel like I was like, I made you guys adopt me for a bit there. And then I got to meet some amazing people there through you guys too. So thank you.
Well, it was easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was another thing too, is I didn't realize like a lot of the people that I was fans of, like writers, actors, stuff like that, all loved improv. Like that was a cool thing to see. And that you guys just went back to the, Fanatic Salon or whatever, just to do it for whoever wanted to show up.
Yeah. It was, we've done that before. Jane has, I don't know, between us, we probably started about 8 or 9 theaters, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I've been known as the Johnny Appleseed of comedy clubs.
Right.
But this is, for me, number 5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And 3 of them were with Jeff, right?
Yeah.
3 of them. So, yeah.
And Zanies, our group was the first act at Zanies.
That's
Chicago.
what it was. Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful club.
Original Comedy Rangers.
Do you remember the first show you did there?
Kind of. I don't know. But, it used to be a strip joint. That's why that stage is so high and it's right in front of the window.
Oh my God. That makes total sense to me.
When I was a teenager, we used to drive by there and watch the silhouette of the dancer.
Oh my God. That's
Can
crazy.
I just tell you about my first time at Zanies?
Yeah, please.
I ran a comedy club called the Chicago Comedy Showcase, and one of the we were the opening act of that. And the guy that was a group of us that ran it, but mostly it was me and this other guy. And he would not let us, I don't get how this worked, do other clubs. And then he quit, and we went right out to Zanies and played Zanies. And that door, that thing about the stage being against the front door.
Yeah.
Then what you did is you walked down the aisle, like you walked down this side thing and around the back to get into the house, and the bar was at the back. And I was standing on stage, and this person walked in, and it was like, remember the Nancy comics where she sees a dime on the, and it's a dotted line. I saw this guy come in from the back. I had like a Nancy comic connection to this back of this guy's head. It was Jeff. That's how we met.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
And then and you guys became friends after that, and then just started dating immediately.
It was an on again, off again thing for a while, but we kind of started dating immediately, sort of, kind of.
Nice. Yeah, that's a kind of a rarity in a comedy. I feel like not like there's only a handful of like comedians, husband and wife, that like, you know what I mean? Like there's a few that I can name off the top of my head.
Deb and Dan.
Yeah.
Dan Castellaneta and Deb LaCosta.
Yep.
Well, we started off as collaborators and doing scenes at Second City.
That's always how it starts.
Yeah. Jeff was already working there.
Yeah. Somebody always goes, do you want to come over and write? And then it's like, do they mean write, or do they, you know?
Well, that stuff was already going on, but he was already in the tour co at Second City when we met, and then I got hired. I got hired shortly after I met him, though.
Well, but the fact is, we played the same comedy clubs before we met. We were in the same reviews as far as like when they reviewed comedy.
Yeah.
So that stuff it's weird because I'll go back and look at an old article, and it's like got both of us in it.
But we hadn't met. So it was like always, you know, like one article, it was the 3 best groups in Chicago.
Wow.
It was about who are the 3 best improv groups in Chicago. And it was the group I was in, the group Jeff was in, and this other group. We never met.
Yeah.
How would you compare the way improv and stuff is done kind of now, like the classes, the groups and stuff like that, to when you guys started? Is there a major difference? Because I never took an improv class. I took a stand-up class.
Well, the major difference is there's so many brands now.
Right.
And they're all basically, I call them improv plantations. They decide who you play with, what the group is. Our stuff was more finding people of like mind to play with, and building it more like a band than like an improv team. And the idea that anyone would tell you what to do or who you're going to play with would be like, nah, see you later. Yeah. So there are only 2 teachers around, maybe more than 2, but Joe Forsberg for the Second City, and then Dell, and then out in the suburbs where the Cusack brothers come from, it was Piven. Piven workshop. So Jeremy's dad and mom taught as well.
Right.
So there wasn't much around. So there was at Second City, there were 6 spots on the main stage and 6 spots in the touring company, and there were like 40 or 50 improvisers outside of there. And so we did the math, and we said, no, let's form independent groups. And
then you guys went. What was it like? Like, how did you know when you guys were ready to go out on the road and tour?
Because we were killing. We were killing. I mean, right away. The group I was in was very, I would say, like Marx Brothers of improv.
Nice.
We would basically deconstruct our own act multiple times during a night. And we had a guy in our company who was a tech guy. I mean, but this is old tech, right? This is like a tape recorder and strobe lights and stuff like that.
Right.
And he would just set up a tape at the back of Sylvester's, and we had all these tapes that we could grab. And one night we're doing a regular game, Mr. Science or something. And I hit the strobe and I threw in this crazy tape with this insane music. I ran out on stage in a white hood, and somebody else came out in a white hood, and we killed the people in the scene. I was in the strobe light, And then the light came up, and the one the guy was playing the kid was crucified up against the wall. And then Mr. Science was still alive, and he said, and that's why you never say the word Illuminati. So that wasn't a set scene. That was us destroying our set.
Right.
Great. And so we had that reputation, and we're getting, we're touring a lot. And
Nice.
At colleges, we worked at Dudley Riggs, ETC. And it's because we didn't know any better. We just... We're just going to do it no matter what.
That's awesome.
Which also spilled over into the Second City ETC.
Yeah. Right.
I actually didn't tour when I was in improv just in Chicago because I had my own place. I had the comedy showcase. So, everybody came through our place and we were the opening act until we played Zanies at one time. But yeah, we Second City, there were 6 actors on stage and you were in the turco and you just kind of waited for somebody from main stage to die.
Yeah.
And they didn't die. And then with our particular company, we just felt like super passed over. Like every time they were trying to fill a slot, they would like bring in people from New York and all. You're like, well, you could see me any Monday because we do the Monday show at Second City.
Right.
And so the Practical Theater had the space in the back that Paul Sills had built, and they were doing shows, and we said, how come we can't do shows back there? And they let us do shows back there. Nice. And then
in the meantime, Julia Louis-Dreyfus and all those guys got hired by SNL.
Right. Wow. So we ended up, but Second City didn't want us to open another space back there. And so Joyce Sloan would tell us when Bernie was out of town because he did archaeological digs. And what we did is they said, oh, you can do the Turco show is a best of show of sketches. And you do a couple games in there, but it's not improv. And so we slowly took out all the Second City old scenes and replaced them with our own scenes. And then we opened a show and we got in big trouble for it.
But we got a great review. So they could.
Yeah. And then we did it again and we got
nice.
We did it twice.
Did the review save you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The second one said you could go through the entire history of Second City and not find a company this good.
Wow.
That was the opening line, the headline in the Tribune.
Wow.
And the first one was Cows on Ice. And that one just had great, weird scenes in them. And including a couple Comedy Ranger pieces that we did, but from that we did at Zanies and other places. But
Sweet.
It was just 3 of them, really. But they were topical but bizarre scenes. So we did one called Toxic Waste, and it was me and Jane. We were doing it in the sets in Turco, and it was, it was about pollution basically. And we talked to a friend of Jane's who was worked for the Environmental Protection Agency. We said, okay, we're doing this scene, blah, blah, what's going on? And she said, nothing. She said, we're just going to have to adapt to it.
Wow.
And that switched the focus of our scene, and we made it a toxic waste dumping campground.
Right.
It's like an amusement park with these very happy people that were mutating and getting just surrendering to the events. And we did that. And we did one called G.I. Joe. And that came from me walking into a store. We had a couple kids at the time, or one kid anyway, and seeing that they're selling G.I. Joes again, which they had stopped at, after Vietnam for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I went, this is a trend. And it was just before Reagan went to Grenada. And to me, I saw it as a signal that they were re-indoctrinating us.
Wow.
So we did this scene with an old G.I. Joe and a new G.I. Joe discovering each other on the battlefield. My guy had no eye, one leg missing, in a poncho, Vietnam era thing. And his stuff, the abuse he was getting was like a kid taking a match and hairspray and spraying him and
napalm,
or poking his eye out with the hot tip of a Bic pen.
Right.
And the new G.I. Joe had all the gear already. So he's just gung-ho about going. And it was a really nice scene about just upcoming events that were coming. It's a little prophetic. but very hilarious at the same time. So we did a lot of stuff that was stylized that way, where it was entertaining, whether you cared about the topic or not, whether you cared about the politics of it or not, it was entertaining even without that.
Yeah.
And that became the way that we approached everything pretty much.
So a couple things though too. That's crazy that you did the environmental stuff and the person that you spoke to literally gave you the same advice that they're telling us now, which is we're screwed. We're just going to have to adapt.
That was 1983.
Yeah, that blows me away because we had a theoretical physicist on the show who just wrote a book called The Physics of Climate Change and basically saying, we're just going to have to adapt to it.
That's right.
And some people are going to make it and some people aren't.
Yeah.
And the earth is going to be fine. It's just humans are fucked.
Yeah. It's like Carlin, who said, saying that the earth will shake us off like fleas.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Were you guys, is it because of your, were you actively political and or just kind of, had that kind of mindset about it at the time, which incorporated into your comedy, or was it just the times in general? Like it was just
for me, it was Second City itself. That's what you're supposed to do,
right?
You were supposed to read the newspaper and figure out what kind of comedy you should do based on what was happening in the world around you. That's the mandate, right? And I can't think that I really did that all that much before I started working there.
Wow.
I'm a really physical comic, so I can throw myself around, and I did pratfalls and all kinds of things.
I was a little more active. When I was in the Navy, I would constantly call lawyers and stuff for other people. This during Vietnam, and I was a radioman, so I could do. I had access to stuff, so I was constantly in contact with lawyers and getting in trouble doing that stuff. And, for me, it's a sense of justice that comes from a childhood kind of thing. So I'm okay with my own abuse, but I can't stand seeing other people.
Sure, absolutely.
So I was active, and then during that time, you get a draft pick,
right.
lottery. It's like, what would I win? And it's. I had friends that were in Vietnam come back, messed up. I know their stories. And it was my brother was an activist. He was during the 66 election, or was it 68? 68. He was part of that protest.
Wow.
And my dad was a cop, so I was getting it from all sides.
Yeah.
So I was aware politically, and I was also I would stand up, right?
Sure.
So, but later on, I actually like being out and about in demonstrations started later for me. Basically, I guess it was the Iraq War, right? So where I started going to marches and such. So
nice.
So from that end, I was in the Green Party for the longest time, and on the other party in
Nader.
Yeah.
No, my friends and I were interested in him back in the day as well, and then we were always just wondering why nothing ever happened. And then cut to, Bernie Sanders years later, and we're still like, why isn't anything happening? But did you guys ever feel like a sense of that you were doing something dangerous at the time? That maybe because I know I've spoken with David Steinberg and stuff like that, and he was threatened by Nixon at the time, or I guess for doing his comedy and stuff. But did the improv world feel that kind of pressure too?
No. By the time we were doing it, we were if you were doing politics in it, we were not too many people were doing it in the groups, right? At Second City we did, but it was ours is more anarchy, which also has that kind of activist bent to it, but it's really more, I don't know what the word is. It's just
I just don't think we gave a shit anyway. Right. Oh, really? You want to say something about what I just did? Bring it.
Yeah.
I just didn't have any compunction about it. I mean, opening the ETC was not easy. It was like a real cat and mouse game of doing all that, and nothing could have stopped us.
Yeah,
I wasn't politically involved, but I did not take no for an answer. And so to me, if you're working on something and that's your artistic thing that you're doing, it's like, then yeah, do that. Don't.
Right.
And our thing was ensemble. So it was like the group, right?
Yeah,
so,
you guys had each other's backs.
Yeah. So,
Very much so.
yeah,
Even now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can tell you're still a tight knit group. Who the guys that you have coming back and stuff. Who were your influences when you were starting out?
Well, for me, this is crazy, but as a kid, I wanted to be Alan King.
Oh, wow.
Because he's just
great.
Number one, I didn't understand what he was talking about because he's talking in Yiddish a lot, right? But I was laughing, right? I was laughing. And so him and Marx Brothers were great, of course. Soupy Sales was a subversive television show. And Ernie Kovacs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Their stuff was that's the stuff I was attracted to.
Nice.
And then as I got into, I did love Second City. I mean, I was crazy about it. I was just still kind of a historical kind of just a lockbox of who was in Second City, meeting them, working with them, working with Paul Sills, working with I worked with Del in classes, and then they're great players around. I mean, some of the players that were also in the clubs with us got to Second City just a little bit before us.
Yeah,
they were very inspiring. Rob Riley, Danny Breen, all these other guys. They're not famous, but someone went to write for television or SNL and stuff like that.
Right.
And they were also out there. They were just. It wasn't like it would shock the audience. Second City's audience is prepared for that stuff. And I think they were maybe happy to see something a little wilder than before.
Yeah.
But that's how we were wilder because we learned to play in clubs, like comedy clubs.
Sure.
And that just meant our pace was different. Our sense of time was different. You already know how to ride that laugh and when to cut it off, and you already have that built in.
Yeah.
And we had that even before we got to Second City. So it put us a little bit ahead of the people that were coming into more traditional ways. People are taking workshops and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Jane, what about you? Who were your influences?
Looney Tunes cartoons. I think probably. I'm not kidding. I mean, it really was one of my major influences, honestly.
Nice.
And I think that has to do with I always wanted to recreate what they were doing, with their physicalities on stage. Like, I always wished I could make my eyes go like boop boop, like twice. Not just once, but twice.
Right.
Like, I wanted to recreate that kind of stuff. So then obviously I gravitated to people like Carol Burnett and I've only, now that I'm old, I would say I was in my 50s when I realized that women aren't supposed to do any of that.
Really?
Yeah. You're not supposed to make faces. You're supposed to keep your face kind of still. And I don't do that. And I still don't do that. And
you never did.
I could never understand why people thought I was such a big weirdo. And it's because I'm a big weirdo. That's why. It's like, oh, I see now.
But at the same time, Jane put together a company at Second City way before any of these tragedies happened at Second City. We had a company already that was 4 men, 3 women, and Jane was our director as well. Right. So we already had that stuff. We already had integrated companies, not fully integrated, but
we tried. God knows we tried. Yeah. I feel like Jeff and I have talked about this. Sometimes I feel like my personal history there has been erased. And
really?
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I think I'm the first woman director.
Wow. In Chicago. Yes.
In Chicago. Definitely. I'm the first woman director. I think maybe by now there's been another one, but almost nobody. And I did put together a 3-woman or
4 women.
A 4-woman, 3. Second City was 4 men and 2 women. The end. Boom. Mm-hmm. And I had 4 women and 3 men. So I had one more person in the cast for one thing.
Nice.
And I had mostly women. And at the time, the men were like, "What? That's all." And I said to them, "Don't get crazy. You'll get to do more, actually. Right? You're playing all the men now, and every man is going to be one of you three." And they were happy as pigs in shit. I got to tell you, that's the show that was supposed to go to LA, actually, because it was such a big hit. And well, that's a whole other story of hell on earth. But nonetheless, that show was a huge hit. Channel This. And
by the way, of the three men, I was not that person.
Oh, you're not that person?
I wasn't that person that would say, "Don't do this."
Yeah.
Well, no, he was not.
Why do you think they're erasing you, though? Or why are they allowed to do that? I'm not.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't have any control over it.
Well, no, we're
going to fix it.
Well, but I do know is that, and this is probably my fault, is that I was somebody that would regularly speak out about people being fired. I was someone that would regularly go to the front office and embarrass them by trying to present their logic to the whole theater.
Right.
I would, even the ETC, they said, "Don't open a show." We opened the show.
Right.
Twice they said, "Don't open a show." The second time, Bernie was in a cab on the way back from the airport from his next dig when we just opened the second show, and he this is like something out of a movie. The review was on the car seat, and he picked it up and reads another fabulous review of our second show, and called on one of his big giant phones and said, "Fire them all."
No, he said, "Fire Jeff and Jane." Is what
wow.
Oh, I don't know. Isn't that back from the Jeff, Jim, and Jane problem? We were known as the Jeff, Jim, and Jane problem.
Yeah, but he didn't want to fire Jimmy because Jimmy's sister was in the main stage company.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love that you guys were troublemakers. That really makes me happy.
Except we weren't. I mean,
we weren't, but we really
internally, I was never thinking I'm causing trouble. I was just thinking, we're just doing this. This is what he does. That's what we do. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the way I feel like a lot of it winds up going too, is like, you're just trying to do your art, or you're just trying to do the right thing. And you're just noticing these injustices around you. And you're like, I'm not going to put up with this shit.
Yeah. And basically, if there was Second City story, brand story, that someone would call me and ask me what happened, and I'd tell them the real story. So I told them the real story because the other producer was telling me exactly what was happening.
Right.
So when Second City closed in LA, for instance, the producer blamed it on the homeless people in Santa Monica. Right.
Right.
And I knew the real story. I knew that he had promised his investors, "Let us entertain you," a return within a year.
Right.
And we weren't selling out every night in Los Angeles. And the earthquaking thing came up, and they were going to have to earthquake the theater. And it gave him an opportunity to back out of the lease.
Wow.
And go back home. So yeah, of course I would get in trouble for that, because that was the case. They did a thing where they're putting students on stage to do scenes that other people created and try to sell them to CBS through Imagine. And I came in and I see all these network people watching a scene of Jane's came up on stage, right? And this other actor had taken it and made it into a sitcom thing and calling it his own. And I just said, you can't do that. I just stopped the thing and said, "You can't do that." And then I went to the Writers Guild to talk to them about it. And I said, "So what's the deal with material in Second City?" And they said, "Okay, in the contract, they own your material if they do it in a live venue.
Wow.
They do it for the Second City show. If they try to transfer it to another media, they have to renegotiate."
Okay.
So I had them call Andrew, and I immediately got fired. So,
holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I got fired. This is my favorite firing story of all time. Talk about not being able to move your face. I got fired because I was told, and this is after we were out here, after we'd opened the first show out here and all that. We moved our family out here. Here we were. I got fired because they basically said to me, "Well, their formula with the 4 men and 2 women was that it was a pretty woman and a character actor." And they basically told me, "We have our other ugly woman, so we don't need you too."
Oh my God.
And You know what I mean? It was like
yeah.
really. I mean, they didn't use that word,
Right.
but that's what it was. And they put in a woman with like fake boobs. She was a Mighty Carson art player, this like blonde chick.
Okay.
And was dating.
And I got fired.
She was dating the other producer, the guy.
Yeah.
The two producers were Andrew was Second City, and the other guy was a game show producer.
Right.
And
so that was unpleasant.
Yeah, right.
It's nice to know that, yeah. Well, nothing has changed, so
Yeah.
it's just all the faces, kind of.
And I always felt like I was protecting Second City.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, what
their reputation, their boom, but
sure.
You know,
what was the point where, because you guys were, you know, you're performing, you're touring, you're doing all that kind of stuff, and then you actually wound up teaching as well. Did you guys set out? Did you guys have that in mind, or is that kind of the improv, you know, community's mindset is, okay, you get to a certain level, you're really good, now you teach it, you pass it down? Is that like, how is that work?
not exactly. I mean, like for instance, Viola was not a performer,
right?
And Del did more teaching and directing than he did performance, although he was, I would say, he was a practitioner.
Right.
At first, I started teaching actually through Jane, I think, at her place.
Was Jane, were you the first? You were the first to start teaching?
No, she would have me. She gave me
to
teach people, and there'd be people from a group or something, and I would coach them a little bit. Nice. And then I started teaching Del's classes at Donnie DePaulo. Took him over, and then he was ill, and then I took them over, and I would teach those classes, and I don't know, I became a director too, and so
yeah, Jeff directed the first like 3 ETC shows, I think.
Yeah,
Donnie DePaulo's listed as the director of Cows on Ice, and he's lovely. We love Donnie, but he was sick a lot, and so it was really Jeff at the helm, and then there was one other director. So it was mostly me and Jeff with one guy in between. And I was going to say something. Oh, and then Jeff, when they decided to do the Second City Training Center, and this is all before LA, they tapped a few people to put together the training program. And Jeff was one. I wasn't involved in that, but Jeff and his brother and Joe Forsberg and who else?
Michael Gelman.
All put the program together, which was simply 5 levels and a graduation show. Thank you so much for your money. And then they saw, whoa. So then all of a sudden it was 6 levels. And then, you know what I mean? It was just all about the dough. And
years and years and years. It became a conservatory where you went for years.
Right.
In order to try to do what the people were doing up on the main stage.
For those 6 actors that you're waiting to die, right?
Well, I would tell, like, we had 300 people show up in LA for the workshops. And I was running the program, so I got up on stage and I said, okay, how many people saw the show last night? And everyone raised their hand. I said, how many people did you see in the show? And there were 7 in that show, right? So they said 7. And I said, okay, look around you. How many people are here? And I said, there's about 300. And I said, what are the odds? What are the odds of any one of you being one of those 7, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, if you're here to develop a craft and to meet your community, which is these 300 people. This is your community. And whatever you develop from there, move from there, whether you do it independently of Second City, which I did, or if you eventually get hired, which I did, then that's what it is. It's about developing your craft, at least in an ideal world. Right?
Yeah.
But I always put that in front of people.
Right.
If you're here for that, that's okay. But look at the odds. What are the numbers?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be daunting, but I feel like the ones that stick it out are the ones that, I mean, it was the same when I went to the city and I took my stand-up class.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't know anything about getting in. Like, you're not supposed to say that you took a stand-up class because people shit on it.
Yeah.
But I don't give a fuck. They really do. They're like, oh, you didn't blindly, drunkenly walk into the back of a White Castle and start telling jokes. And you're like, no, I didn't. I just took a class. So I did that or whatever, but there was like 30, I think, or whatever. And it was kind of interesting because it was only me and one other person that wound up sticking it out, and I have no idea what the fuck happened to anybody else.
Yeah,
Like,
well, part of it is perseverance. I mean, when I was working comedy clubs, even with the group,
mm-hmm.
we were out at least 4 nights a week.
Right.
And playing multiple clubs. We'd drive out to Lions and do something at the Comedy Womb. Then we drive across to Des Plaines and do the Comedy Cottage.
Mm-hmm.
And we drive into Chicago and do Zanies.
Right.
So, we're out all night doing 3 or 4 gigs every night.
Yeah.
So
I love hearing the names of comedy clubs, by the way. I think that makes me, I wish there was a book of just the ridiculous knuckleheads, all the ones that we've done over, and the ones that survived or whatever. And then
most of them are mob.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Everybody always tell you like that's when they were run well. And you're like, were they?
Well, they had the launder money, so they'd pay you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's really what it was.
Yeah.
I was at Zanies one night. I'm standing in the back, and the Zanies story is the first 4 guys that opened it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get in trouble for this too, but were tech guys, and they didn't know how to run a club, but they did it. They're nice guys, and they eventually started disappearing, one by one. And the guy that ran the parking lot became the owner. Right?
Oh wow.
Rick Hewitt, who passed away. He was a nice guy. I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 stories. One time I'm in the back and someone bangs on the door, and I open up the door. There's an act on stage. I think emo or somebody's on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring in a side of beef and they hang it up over the sink. And I already did my set. I'm just waiting around in case I do something later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing back there. About an hour later, someone else knocks on the door. I open up the back door. They come in, they take the side of beef and leave, right? So that's the first one. The second one, we were playing a Thursday night and nobody was there. Mm-hmm. And so we said to Rick, the boss, we said, can we go home? He goes, no, get on stage. So we went on stage. This old man comes in, but in the mafia uniform suit, he comes in, another guy comes in. Hewitt is back by the bar, and then there's somebody else talking there. And then there's this one guy sitting in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Big guy, dangerous looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing the show, and Jimmy Fay, who was a great comedian and a great comic in our thing.
Yeah.
He loses his temper a little bit, and we start just doing mob jokes. We just start playing mafia. And then all of a sudden we hear out in the house tables being pushed over, and this guy rushing toward the stage, knocking over tables, reaching into his coat. And the old man yells from the back. He goes, "Gino, they're comedians! They're comedians!" The guy stops a few feet short of the stage, looks at us, and starts going, "Ha ha 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 ha!" And he goes and sits down. So,
oh my God, that had to be frightening.
Yeah, I think we got a tip that night. I don't
know.
Yeah. We're playing to nobody but Gino.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The club up in Detroit also was Comedy Castle, I guess it was called.
Yeah, Comedy Castle. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, they also had affiliations.
Mark Ridley, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but they paid you. They paid you well. They treated you better. Sometimes in subversive ways, free drinks. And I remember when I went to Detroit, one of the comics was trying to tell me that the women were available.
Oh.
But I was, I was a Catholic kid. My dad was a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And also just seemed kind of sleazy to me. So I just
They were always like, I think, I don't know if there was like a residue around or whatever when I
mean like a Coke residue?
Some of that, whatever was on the money they paid me in. When I started in when I started in 05, they just the guys that were around would talk about like, what they would pay you in and who they would auction off to you at the end of the night. But like with a fondness that I just didn't know that I shared necessarily.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah. Where they would pay you in a bag of Coke or cash or whatever.
Well, there's so much that 80s. There was some late 70s, 80s. There was so much Coke around.
Yeah.
Done freely. And, I'd go to a Hollywood meeting and people would be passing a spoon over, you know. And
Amazing.
It's like, okay, this is a meeting about television show. What is this? You know.
Right.
So,
did it get easier to convince them that they had bought a project you were selling though? Like, no, you said
no.
yes. We were all doing coke, and you said,
I wish that was true.
Yeah. No, we had a lot of pitch sessions, but like one of them, the guy goes, I do the pitch, and then he repeats the pitch back to me exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, wait, I just said that. That was my pitch. And he goes, no, that's my idea.
Oh.
I go, no, I just told you. You know, no, that's my idea. It's like, okay, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
You know, he ended up producing something on HBO later, Flight of the Concorde.
No fucking way. Flight of the Conchords?
Yeah.
That wasn't our idea, though.
No.
Right. But that was just a guy. Yeah. It
was the same guy I had the pitch with.
Right. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But there was a lot of that stuff. We went to Fox and we were pitching this really kind of high-end comedy thing with a moving camera. It's like, you know, where it was there was a group in England. They had an anarchist in the group. It was like they're in one house, and hippie and anarchist, something else. The young ones. And every once in a while, their camera would slide into a picture frame.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like in Australia with criminals. And then slide back, and you're back in the kitchen, and these guys are doing whatever they're doing.
Oh,
so
wow.
we pitched the show where you'd move the camera that way, move that way into televisions, out of televisions, into a glass of beer, and out, and boom, a sketch. And the great thing about it was that you didn't have to end sketches.
Right.
You could just leave at their high point all the time.
Nice.
And into the next thing. So we're doing a pitch for that at Fox. And the guy who head of the comedy at the time said, if it's not the Three Stooges, I won't get it. And I said, okay. And I just packed up all our stuff and we left.
Wow.
And I think it upset my partners. But that, you know, it's just.
Why waste your time?
I didn't know how to respond.
Yeah.
We had meetings that were like that.
Yeah.
From time to time. And, you know.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't even know sometimes why. I've been on meetings where I had one at MTV. I had a few at MTV, but one of the ones I had at MTV I thought was hilarious because I got all the way there. You know, they put me in this weird little room or whatever it was, and I was like, none of this seems right. And then the woman who came in to interview me was like, so we're not really, we have no real need for comedians right now. And I just went, okay. then why am I here? And then I was
so much of show business is like being in the tooth cleaning chair. You know what I mean? Like first you're in the waiting room, and then you're in the tooth cleaning chair, and then maybe you'll see the dentist.
And you're real naive too. I had a meeting with the head of CBS, and he's saying to me, "Oh, Jeff, I love your work. I love every show that you did." Right? And I go, "What show did you see?" And he just goes on. And I go, "No, wait a minute. Which show did you see?"
Yeah.
He goes on. I go, "Wait, I'm very curious. Which show did you see?" And then he just looked at me and said, "I didn't see any shows." And that was the end of the meeting. And it was like, and then in retrospect, I go, "God, what's with my big mouth? What is my thing?"
Right.
It's really looking for context. That's all.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like because I kept going, I was embarrassing him.
Oh God,
putting him on the spot. And
but then also, why even say like there's, you know what I love? I love when people have been like, we'll say something about that, like they'll be like, oh, because we've done like 80 something episodes, and I'll be talking to somebody or whatever, and they'll be like, we love it, it's so, and they'll say something that it's not.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not that at all. But then I just go, oh, thank you so much. I just take the bullshit.
That was the lesson I did not learn.
Yeah. But in the back of my head, I'm like, you didn't fucking watch the goddamn. And then I know, but what I love to do is I know for the next conversation that I have, I can just make something up.
Yeah.
That they have said or whatever it is, and they just go right along with it because they don't want to be embarrassed. And I'm like, well, now the ball's in my court now.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the power.
Yeah.
You learned faster than I did.
But I understand. I get very aggravated about stuff, or my brain just kind of takes over for whatever reason in those situations where I'm like, I really shouldn't push it here. And then you're just like, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah.
What was were there students that you had or people that you knew? Because I was reading an article in Vanity Fair with Colbert not too long ago, and he had mentioned your name and basically said that you had taught him to love the bomb.
Yeah.
When did you learn to love it?
Because I did so many shows. I mean, when you start off, you're not very good, or you just don't know if you're good. So I started doing live shows almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were really terrible and very painful because of that. And I just learned to go on, and people start laughing at your pain, right?
Right.
You tell them the shit that's going on with you, and that's what they start laughing at.
Sure.
So, but my experience was also, like, even in group comedy, is if things were going wrong and you backed away, that was it, right? If you backed away and said, okay, we suck, we give up, right?
Right.
Or if you just tried to stop and change the whole flow, you also lost the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned was that if you realize, oh God, I don't have these people at all.
Right.
If I just continue on the path I'm going with that realization now, they'll dive with you because they don't want you to fail either. So they dive with you. And then that moment that you hit, when the plane kind of rights a little bit, then you have everybody in the audience because you scared the shit out of them that you were going to suck.
Right.
And now you don't in that moment, and they're all with you.
Wow.
So that's what I learned, and that's what I tried to pass on to him, because that group, they're brand new. Farley was in that group, and Paul Danello, Amy Sedaris, really great kids. And a couple of them were trying to perform, right? Trying to make the audience laugh, right?
Yeah.
And my experience was they need to land with you, the individual, in order to go on the journey with you. And if you're projecting too much, I mean, there are people that are totally projection entertainers, right? So those need to have everything built up around them in order so they could always project that. But for you to be on the journey with the audience, they have to land with you. And that means being vulnerable enough to understand when you have people and when you don't.
Yeah.
And to acknowledge it. I mean, sometimes even you acknowledge it on stage. In that moment, you gain a bunch of the house because you are confirming that they're not wrong, right? You're confirming that, yeah, something. I did a turn here, and I don't know what it was, but I lost you for a minute. But even that acknowledgement, in some fashion, can reconnect you. Right? So that's what I was going at, and then he used it when he did the Bush thing. Right. So he was doing the Bush thing, and him and Paul had written 2 sets. And the audience wasn't laughing at him, but it's because they were afraid. It was like the reporters were afraid to laugh. And he said he remembered my thing there, and he kept going. And he won. It won them over. It won the nation over, really.
Absolutely.
And he always has been a very courageous guy. Totally courageous, and understood the satire lessons from Bernie Sahlins at Second City. And the main one was that it's self-indicting. Satire is self-indicting. If I just go out there and play Bush as a bad guy or whoever is a bad guy, I might get some funny jokes, but it has no power. The power comes from your part in it. Right? Your cowardness in confronting it or whatever it is. You know, we all waved the flag and went, yeah, let's go get the Afghanis or the Iraqis or whatever.
Right.
And there's a bit of shame in that. And the you can go later, well, I was lied to, but you can also go, wait a minute, 2 and 2 doesn't make 4 here. What's going on?
Right.
So there's power in that. There's power in being there, even if it means for the moment that the audience disconnects from you, either from fear or whatever it is. If you let them take the bomb journey with you, and it will be okay. And you learn that you never have to bomb, because every time you feel it coming on, you re-engage.
Yeah, absolutely. It was weird doing it as a stand-up, I think, too. And I used to have you know, probably the same experience you guys had or whatever, but man, like it hurt so much in the very beginning. It was just like, and plus like I was always driving a distance. So, you know, you spent so much time alone on the road going to and from a place just to fucking eat it.
That's
and then, you know, and then oncoming traffic starts to look really appealing where you're like,
yeah.
You know,
sometimes it's the venue, you know, one night we play in a 300 seat house and the next night we're in a lunchroom, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, and the music's going and people are blabbing, and you also learn what is your fault and what's the environment.
Yeah. It's so oddly comforting when you realize it's you, like, especially now, like I'm doing it for 16 years at this point, but it's like, you know, there's some nights where I feel so much better when I go, yeah, I ate it. That's because right. I was not in the mood or whatever it was, which you feel kind of like it's still your job to be the best you can possibly be. But there's sometimes where you're just like, yeah, today was an off day and I'm going to go be funny tomorrow.
Yeah, but you see, you've been great comic because that's what I was saying is you're seeing Jay Leno and you're seeing Richard Lewis and you're seeing what happens to them when they feel like they've lost the audience. Mm-hmm. And usually it's a moment of honesty. Sometimes it's a moment of hostility, but mostly a moment of honesty. And, you know, Richard Lewis would just open up to the audience and go, obviously something's wrong here, you know. and talk about his own mental problems as maybe part of the thing, like, you know, paranoia or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the audience would hear this kind of moment of truth and then they're back on board with you. And you can run.
As soon as you're honest with them. Yeah. Jane, was there a particular point where you thought like everything clicked for you? You know what I mean? Like as a performer, whatever.
Yeah, there were several. There, you know, like big moments where you go, "Oh, I get it now." Mm-hmm. And I would say the first one was when I first got to Second City. I knew I had been working on stage every single night. You know what I mean? And when I auditioned, I was terrified, and I thought, "What are you terrified about? You do this. Just do what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do it every night. What are you doing?" So that happened, but
well, how long is that? Was there between telling yourself that, because that's interesting to me, because that's something that I had to remind myself for a while. You know what I mean? Like, why are you whatever? How long did you have to ask yourself that question? Like, why are you scared? You've done this before.
Oh, well, I have an answer to the question now. Because it's all neurological, right? So
yeah.
So I work with writer performers now a lot, and I direct a lot of shows and stuff. That's what I've been doing, and you know, you get terrified. You're doing a solo show or whatever. It's terrifying, and it's because you're afraid of failing, which is everybody's afraid of failing. I mean, of course you're afraid of failing for whatever reason, and no matter what your job is, and so. But your body, when you start to get nervous because you maybe forget your lines or whatever you're afraid of, your body reacts like you're being chased by a bear. It doesn't know the difference. It releases adrenaline and cortisol and fight or flight, and you're just flop sweat and all of it. And you have to tell yourself there's no bear, right? There is no bear. Unfortunately, it's too late because all the chemicals have hit your brain. So you have to counteract those chemicals. Yeah. So anyway, that's a whole other issue, but
it's so true though.
But then, so there's ways to do that. My personal trick is to say there's no bear and I'm really excited to be here because I want to tell you this. I'm here because I want to show you this. I think you really ought to see this. I think you'll like it. I think you'll enjoy it. I worked real hard on it. Here it is, right? So I try to get into that mindset, you know, even to go on. But starting out, my big watersheds were, I was at Second City there and doing my thing, and I would say it took me the better part of a year to figure out that I didn't know what I was doing at all as an improviser. And I was Bernie was teaching these workshops at the time, and it was all about irony and blah, blah, blah. And this other guy came through town named Bill Matthew, but now he's called Loudon, and he was Fred before Fred. Fred Kaz was the musical for Second City.
Okay.
Loudon was
in the original Second City company.
In the original Second City, he was at the piano, and he was the one that like said, "Fred, you ought to be doing this." And he came to town and he did 2 workshops, and they were far apart, but each one for me was like warp drive. So my three big like woof things were the first one he came and said, you're filling someone else's time. That's all you're doing.
Right.
What are you filling it with? So that was a huge one for me. But then Bernie started teaching these things, these workshops about irony, which just went right over my head. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, let alone put it together in a sketch form. Just kill me now. Just fuck me. And
Right.
me in the living. So, but then right around then, Aladdin came back. And this workshop was about, Bernie was making you take the newspaper, find an article, do a sketch about that article, right? And I was dead in the water. And he came in and did the same thing and said, how does this make you feel? Now, Jeff and I have had this argument because this doesn't work for him, but it totally 100% works for me.
Right.
He goes, how does this make you feel? And a lot of the time, frankly, it's a newspaper. It's anger, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is why. Why does it make you angry? And all of a sudden, right there, you have the definition of irony. And I'll quote Jeff's definition, which is the distance between reality and the ideal.
Okay.
That's why you're angry. What is the distance? What's the ideal? What's the reality? Why is this?
I would say actually right? Between your behavior and your ideals.
Right. So that to go to take whatever reaction I was having to anything around me and put that through the lens of comedy was like just a huge like burst of warp drive stuff. And so those were the two main ones. But then not too long after that, I was understudying. I was in the ETC, but I was understudying all the time on main stage. Mm-hmm. And Del was directing then. And I did a blackout. And it was just a stupid blackout. And it was two old, it was just across the stage. It was two old ladies being at old folks' home. And they're talking about, you know, what's for dinner and da-da-da. And it's just whatever they're saying while they're crossing the stage. And when they get to the one side, it's like what drugs. What I was thinking about is what a druggy kid I was, and just pot really. But you know what I mean? Like how important it was to like, what if you run out of pot today? And so like what happens when you're, you know, in the old folks home and you're 90 and you're looking for a joint, and, you know, like that was the blow. Like they're off trying to find a joint. And, and Del went, that's not a blackout. That's a scene. That's all. He hated women. Don't pretend he didn't. He fucking did. So anyway, so I learned a lot from him blowing me off. So he goes, that's a scene. And I'm like, oh, all right. So the next night I go out with it as a scene. Same thing though. It was all about the drugs. And I come back up and he says, no, that's not the scene. The scene is what they're doing. It's about survival. It's about survival. So what's that? What are they doing to survive? It's not about just the drugs. It's about, are they astral projecting?
Right.
You know, what are they doing to survive? And I got to say, we did do that scene in the first ETC show. It's a shitty scene. It, you know, didn't really work out very well, but that thing of like, what's it about? What's it really about? And that filtered down to my improvisational skills. I remember one time Ryan Stiles telling me, and you see this in his work, I can't work without the where, he says. I can't work without the where. And I'm, which is odd because he starts scenes by going, and that's why the French don't wash, but okay. But he does need the where. I've watched him work. And I don't need the where. I don't care if I ever find out where I am in the scene. I need the idea. I need to know what we're talking about.
Right.
And now I can run. Once I can pick up that ball and run down the field, I'm good. And until I can determine what it is we're really talking about here, it's not going to really take off for me.
Also, I did teach some stand-up classes, and what I tell people now, you know, now they just give you 2 minutes, 3 minutes to do these.
Oh my God. Yeah. Mine was like 04 or 05, I think it was, or whatever. But yeah, you had to do 2 minutes of material when you first got into the class.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to work up to your 5.
Right.
but they would just like before you even started, they would just
even
make
during
it.
the open mics, you need 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
They,
Yeah, you need 5 to 10 minutes if you're doing
yeah.
the open mics.
So I would
Right.
tell people, but
Now.
they start breaking down to 3 minutes, like at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're only auditioning jokes.
Right.
And that becomes a disservice to the comedian because there's so many things that can go wrong with a joke.
Agreed.
In a night. So I would tell people, don't audition your jokes. Don't use them as don't say your joke and then wait for a response.
Right.
You're saying judges. And I encourage them to write bits instead of jokes, because jokes are in the bits, because you can replace the jokes in a bit, and the bit is still funny. The bit still has a reason for you to talk about it, right? Whether it's about I don't know, pharmaceuticals or whatever the fuck it is that if you have a bit, you have a couple cage for your jokes, then you can replace the stuff until you build the bit.
Yeah.
And then you got that bit. Then you start moving your bits around. That's how you create your running order and stuff.
And I think it also becomes infused with your personality when you do it that way too, and not just this singular floating thing.
Yeah.
That you're hoping it lives or dies, which
and
9 times out of 10 it's going to die.
You're trying to do someone else's style sometimes, and that's why you're going to fail, right? So there's a lot of things about that. Like everybody can't be Robin Williams, and pretty much nobody. But
yeah. He's one of my all-time favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a matter of you doing your jokes coming from you. It's a personal thing that you're building, and then you're Rick Overton, and then you're you're this person. You're not the joke machine. Although we know some good joke machines.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God,
Emo's a great joke machine.
Emo.
Oh, Emo! I love Emo Phillips. I don't think. I think we tried to get him to come on at one point. I don't think he likes this.
Probably not.
And I don't blame. I wouldn't have assumed he would have, but I don't think he likes the virtual stuff. And again, it's weird. I feel the same way you do about it, because when I was out in LA, I'd gotten into the Laugh Factory, because of management or whatever. But I got there early, and I had to watch the comics that were waiting to go on. And not to shit on the Laugh Factory, but here we go. But they like it matters.
We played the Laugh Factory too.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I used to do it in Chicago. That was the first time I did it before the one in LA. So I used to, I got past there, and I think I opened for Dom Irera or whatever. And
we know Dom. We went to Ireland with him. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh my God, I love Dom. Dom is the best.
Emo went there too. We had a Second City show. It's the first comedy festival in Kilkenny, Ireland.
Wow.
And a lot of great people were on there.
Oh my God.
And
I'm just waiting for you to shit on the Laugh Factory, though.
Oh yeah. So I'm in there, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and they've got these people who because I got there early, I was actually talking to the comedians, and I felt like such a heel too when you like walk past them. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I was supposed to be on the later show or whatever, and I was like, oh, this feels weird. But they're out there waiting or whatever, and I get in there, and then they're all kind of doing their thing, so I'm just sitting in the back, and they have some like kid, must have been like 18 or something like that, and he's got a buzzer and a mic and his own mic, and these people are going up, and they're all different ages, you know what I mean? So there's like 40-year-old dudes up there, like women, whatever, and if they do something they're not supposed to do, if they go over their time, which again is only like 2-3 minutes, to kind of explain themselves and they were telling me that they waited like, a month or something like that. Every time they fucking bomb that audition, they got to wait another month to get back up there. And then this guy was up there, and he said shit. And he's like in his 40s or whatever. And the kid just hits the fucking buzzer. And it was like in the beginning of his set. And he's like, you're not allowed to curse. You got to go. You're out. And I felt like shit, because I was like, this is the worst environment I've ever seen for people to be displayed. And also so degrading to be an older dude and to be told by some fucking kid that you can't say shit in your act. It's so confusing, and so just it felt horrible. And I hated going up the next night. It wasn't another club that I had frequented, because I was like, that's a really shitty way to treat people. And then to treat other entertainers.
That's when the brand becomes more important than anything else. It's like when we started, you did, even as a brand new comic, you got a 10-minute spot.
Mm-hmm.
If you bombed, you just bombed. Maybe
Sure.
you come back, but you got really the development time.
Yeah.
So that when you came back, you redid it, and you came back and you redid it, and finally you got good at 10 minutes real fast.
Right.
Are you already on board to be an act, right? Because you at the beginning of the show, you might have two 10-minute guys, and then the 20-minute guy, and then the headliner, right?
Right.
So you got to develop things faster. Emo was in that environment. Everybody come. At first club I played at, the hosts were Tom Dreesen and
Tom,
his buddy, the guy that Tim and Tom. So Tim Reed.
Oh yeah.
Right? So and they gave you 10 minutes, and you got to develop, and it was like everybody that went through there seemed to be on stage with me later on when I started playing professionally. They're around. They're around, and the ones that didn't maybe established a home spot where they can run comedy shows and do their be the MC and do their act, and develop more organically than it does now.
Also, comedians seem to get along better with improv people back in the day than they do now. I don't know why there's a rift in particular, but it seemed like you guys were all meshed together. You were performing at comedy clubs.
We're doing better stuff too, because we were doing it like a comic.
Right.
So we doing the same. We could talk about the same thing about this and this and this. And once they started branding the workshops with IO, or this is this style, this is our dojo, we do improv this way, and this is our dojo, we do this, and everyone else is our enemy. It's a messed up system. And that's why I call it comedy plantations, because you get locked into one church forever.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and it could be the answer really to why you feel like the comics now and the improv people don't like each other, because it's almost like that thing where, like, because improv people go to school, right? And you say you didn't, and most people don't. You did, but you're like the only one. It's like, it's that kind of, oh, you went to Yale, huh? I'm not saying it just has that feeling to it, though.
It does, yeah.
It's this weird sort of, I will say, and exactly what Jeff is talking about with the plantations and stuff, there is a feeling to me sometimes in the improv community of real preciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Of, it's like, because, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's this, because it's supposed to be about yes and and this your team and all this stuff, and now they're using it for corporate stuff too, because it's about team and team building.
Oh God,
I think it does get this preciousness to it that is a little.
Well, the other thing is that it's students that are watching your shows every night.
Mm-hmm.
It's other students that are watching your shows. So you don't get that hardcore thing of, I have to entertain a public audience.
Right.
So
this is
that's so nice. It's like, no, you have to go step in the fire.
Right.
And I think that was the difference. I mean, Overton's a great improviser.
Yes.
Okay. Robin was a great improviser and stand-up. Jim Carey is a great improviser and stand-up. It's like it's
it is weird, those three, when you talk about those three. Even Charles Fleischer, we just had him on too, and he's a very loose guy on stage and stuff like that, and a great improviser. And
monads.
Yes, oh my God, yeah, he did. He still talks. It's crazy. He texts me every day something different, or some kind of how it's all connected. He was excited too, because I'm turning 37 in a couple weeks, and he was just like, Mo leads. I was like, it's weird. I feel like when I talk to improv guys now, they have somewhat of a disdain for what Robin did or Jim Carrey, you know what I mean? Or like even whatever. And I find that so odd, because I think those guys are very freeing. Even when I watched you guys, all of you on stage at the same time perform, it didn't feel like the kind of structure that I've seen my friends go through with their improv scene. It seems to suck the life out of it. which is a shame.
Well, that's because they do take their dojo structures, and that's what they move on. When improvisation actually is a practice, it really is more like a martial art. So there's actual practice in it on how I engage, what I'm looking at, how I deconstruct, just like you do in comedy. You deconstruct a whole world through a bit, and it's the same thing. It's the same physical practice, and that's what those guys like. That's what Carey and these guys learn. That's what I learned. And that becomes the thing. And it's not just from classes, it's classes and experience in clubs, live experience.
Yeah. And the live experience part teaches you that the audience is the other player.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of I've never heard that said to me in an improv school.
Right.
And that's one of the first things I learned is, I didn't have much training coming into Second City. We were just a comedy group, and we met twice a week for 2 hours each time. And each time we got together, we worked on one game for 2 hours. And then the next time we worked on a different one. And then we opened for everybody. And it was trial by fire in terms of if you were good at it or not. That's how I started. Just like, it's either funny or it isn't. Actually, when I was in college, I was a theater major and all that. And I was doing drama and comedy, and I made a conscious decision in my junior year because I was doing whatever I was asked to do. But when I was doing drama, I never felt right. I didn't know if it was getting over. I didn't know if it was shitty or good. I didn't know. I could not tell.
Right.
But I was good at comedy. I've always been good at comedy. I was the class clown as a kid, and I once skipped all the way home for 3 blocks like Jerry Lewis as a child. So anyway,
You get immediate feedback.
Yeah, I switched to comedy because you either get a laugh or you don't.
Yep.
No, if you're getting over.
Right.
And I never looked back. And now, weirdly enough, I do drama in movies.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say you worked with Meryl Streep.
I did. So did Jeff.
And you both worked with Meryl Streep. Do your improv skills, do you ever feel like, because, you've got your script, and I don't know how loose whoever was directing or whatever makes it feel. Soderbergh. Does it, coming from those backgrounds, do you have to fight the instinct to do it, or does your drama, you don't?
Meryl's improvising too. And
great.
So was
Jamie Cromwell.
They're both improvising. They know they're gonna say the lines, right? But to make the scene work, to make it fresh that day, there is a certain amount of improvisation in there.
In the words, or in what you're doing?
In the when you start filming.
Okay. Oh wow.
Right? So, and that's almost every movie I've been in. It's the same situation. Is that like we work for Gary Marshall?
That's right.
He would tell us what he wanted to happen, and we'd go away and maybe improvise. I would generally hide from the other improvisers because I didn't want to set anything. I wanted to do it fresh.
Right.
And we come in, we do the bit. We did the bit. We got through the thing. We walked down the corridor with Tom Hanks, made a funny thing happen, and he improvises too. So there, and in other films, the same practice is what you do in the scene. I connect to the other player. I read the other player. I see what they're projecting at that moment, not about the lines, but what I see on their face, right? And what I can read. And that's my response comes from that direct connection as opposed to from the lines themselves. There's meaning in the lines sometimes, and sometimes there's not, right? Especially in sitcoms, right? It's like, what does it mean? Well, it means whatever it means to the lead characters here. That's what it means.
Right.
So let me look at that guy. What is he giving me in his line? That's how I'm going to respond. So
I did have a comical moment with Al Pacino where I had to keep coming up to in Frankie and Johnny. I come up to the window and he says something to me, and I would just say something back to him. And like I called him Captain Ahab because he had this thing on his head and shit. And so then he would say something back to me, and then I could say something back to him. We'd keep going, right? So this happened like 3 times in a row. We're doing this one take. And about the third time we did it, he says something, I say something back. He says something, I say something back. Gary pulls me aside and he goes, next time, whatever Al says, don't say anything after that. I'm like, I got it.
That's great.
Just let the star do the thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's fucking funny. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's about the idea, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not about me and my screen time and my funny jokes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm here to service this.
What has to happen in this scene?
What has to happen? Do I need to shut up now? Fine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice that they told you that's what they wanted instead of just being like, pick up on it. You're like, I'm not.
Yeah. Just edit me out.
Carey mostly let you improvise, and then he'll take the cut he wants, which is generally not your favorite because it's more corny than what you run in. But,
there's a whole scene in Frankie and Johnny that's improvised, which is the locker room scene with the three women.
Oh, nice. That's a good, Wow.
I mean, it had lines to it, but we really, like, in the end, a lot of what we improvised is in there.
Right. Oh, that's fucking cool. Is it when you're doing the movies and stuff like that too, and when you're with those like stars, are you ever intimidated in any particular way, or you just been around so long that you're just like, it doesn't matter?
I have been. They don't spring to mind.
But you still felt like that weird.
I was nervous about Meryl Streep.
Okay.
I didn't know what she was like as a person, and it was just the four of us, basically all day in this thing, and I was really nervous, but there was no need to be nervous. Oh. She was the nicest. We yammered and laughed all day.
Nice.
Like, nonstop, the four of us. It was great.
That's good to hear.
You got a hot chocolate.
That's always nice.
So, but I know I have. Also, when we were doing Frankie and Johnny, it started with these table reads at Penny Marshall's house, and I got the script, and we've done table reads for Gary, and he just goes, "You're not auditioning, and you're reading 5 roles. Just read them. Don't do anything." Well, one of them was this character I'd done on stage. It looked like to me in the script, called Netta, and I'm like, well, I would never do my character while I'm at this table read. And Gary came over to me before it started and said, that character you do in the coffee shop? Do that when you read Netta. I'm like, oh, so I do this, and then there'd be another table read. So the first time it was like Hector Elizondo and Penny read Frankie and Johnny.
Right. And
the second time it was, I can't remember who. And then so now we're getting used to this. And every time we go to a table read, some people aren't there any longer. So we're like, okay, we're still in the running. And then, sorry, my TV just came on.
It's not at the end of the show.
So we keep coming to these things. So finally we go, I was with Taylor Negron. And we were and we come to this thing, and it was Laurie Metcalf.
Oh my God,
Frankie, and we're waiting for someone who's late, and in walks Al Pacino, and it's this really small room. It wasn't Penny's house anymore. Right. Really small room, and we all just like went. And Taylor goes to me, "Are we just going to all pretend like everything is normal, even though Al Pacino just walked in?" And I said, "Yes, Taylor, that's what we're going to do." Don't eat the cheese.
Yeah.
Don't eat any cheese. You'll have crackers on your lips. Don't.
It's so weird. Like, because I've been in, in a situation, where you're just kind of like, do they want to be treated like a normal person? They want you to acknowledge that you know who they are. And I don't ever know if I get it right. I just hope, I'm like, they seem fine, but I don't know if they want to be. The only one was, I think, I had met, we were talking to Lewis Black about this. Who's the guy, his close friend, Tom? The
one that Dan Lauria?
No. The one who was on Bosom Buddies, the not Balky other guy.
Cousin Larry. Whoever. Yeah, I do this. I swear to God. Every show.
I do this every show where I forget a name of somebody and it's just horrible. Whatever that guy was, but not Bosom Buddies. Perfect Strangers. Balky, Cousin Larry. I love Perfect Strangers too. I can't think of his name. Anyway, friends with Lewis Black. Lewis Black's telling a story about him, and I was like, I met him on the street once, coming out of an audition. I was in an audition. He was coming out of an audition, and I knew who he was, and I didn't know what to say. And I was walking up to him, and I chickened out, and I just asked him for directions, and then he was like, "Sure." Like in the right direction. I was like, yeah, if I go up 35th and I make a left, and he was just like, and in my head, I was like, I wonder if he was like, this stupid fucking kid has no idea who I am, and I was like, wait, and I was like, and you're cool, and I just left. And
I did
Marklin Baker, by the way.
Marklin Baker, thank you. That's it.
I did it to one of the guys on Friends.
Matthew Perry, Matt LeBlanc,
Matt.
Matthew Perry.
Matt. It was Perry. He came to see an improv show I was in.
Oh, nice.
And he came up to me afterwards, and he said, "That was great." And I don't watch television, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't watch the sitcoms anyway.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, thank you. Are you a player?" And he just gave me the disgusted look and then walked away.
Oh my God!
Mostly, I'm not intimidated because the people I was playing with early on were really funny human beings who I respect, and a lot of them become stars, right?
Right.
And I figure when I'm cast, I'm there, right? So I don't.
You're already in.
You're up to anybody. I just introduce myself, and if we start talking about stuff later on, maybe I'll go, "Yeah, I loved you, and this that was just great."
Right.
You know?
Well, because the guys that you've had at Fanatic Salon, I mean, you've had George Wen's been there, his wife Bernadette's been there, Conan was there at one point. I think I saw photos.
I directed Bernadette in the first thing she ever did.
Oh my God!
Back in Chicago.
Yeah, they go way back.
Use my GI
Conan used to play with John Stark's group. They're all old buddies.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. That makes sense.
So Conan played with them at least 3 times at the Fanatic.
And also the woman from Friends was in there.
Lisa Kudrow.
Lisa Kudrow,
yeah, she played too.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Because she and Conan started together, right, at Second City.
Well, they were all in the actual Transformers.
Oh, the Transformers.
But they were in the Groundlings.
Groundlings. Yeah. Okay.
But Conan did a show in Chicago with Oldenkirk and a bunch of other guys, and he would come to our show at the ETC. So
wow.
You know, that stuff happens too, because you're playing at the same time, kind of in the same level. The Steppenwolf people used to come to our shows, Malkovich and those guys, and we go to their shows. And so it becomes.
I knew Laurie Metcalf as an audience member.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it becomes less of a. I was watching a show I did called I Pollock. And at the end of the show, I'm looking at old tape of it years ago. And at the end of the show, I would take these white socks and make people Pollocks by bouncing the white socks off their head. And the first person I talked to was Amy Poehler.
Oh my God!
But I didn't know. You know, that's just an audience member. At
sure.
that time, she probably really just was an audience member.
Right.
But I go, "What's your name?" And she goes, "Amy," and it's Amy Poehler. And I hit her on the head with a bunch of white socks. So that stuff happens too. People see you. Andy Dick was like a fan of ours, and he was our babysitter.
Oh my God!
Terrible abuse we did to our kids.
I was just gonna say that's great.
Yeah, but he was.
Well, it's not as bad as it sounds. Our babysitter couldn't make it, and I had to bring the baby to work, and there was this kid that would come to every show wearing a cummerbund. And it was Andy Dick, and it was like, "Can you hold the baby during the show?" Which only happened twice.
Okay.
But he was like a fan. He was there all the time.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of relationships that way.
Right.
People saw you over the years, or you worked with them, and like I did a small film with Robin Williams, AFI film in 1978.
Oh, was it Moscow on the Hudson?
No, it was called this is an AFI film. So student film. It's called The Last Laugh.
Wow.
And I played Robin was a star with this old man that was his mentor, and I played a Russian exchange comedy student. And it was because I was in the Groundlings, and they hired a bunch of groundlings in this thing. So a lot of times the people that become stars, and I'm sure you're experiencing this now, were contemporaries.
Yeah.
So I'm 70 years old, or just about to be 70. So I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
So I worked with Michael Nesmith, and in fact, the thing I worked on Michael Nesmith with the the Monad guy took that part over. What's his name? Roger Rabbit.
Charles Fleischer. Yeah, Roger Rabbit. Yeah.
So I was the first VJ in America.
Wow.
With this Michael Nesmith thing. It wasn't a good production of it. It was one, it was the pilot. And I was supposed to play a hippie in a Victorian mansion in outer space. But one of the producers came in and she thought I was cute. So they put me in a nice red cowboy suit with a red hat. And it killed it for me. I just was, what? And then they did the pilot. They rejected me in the pilot, and then Fleischer did the show.
Wow.
And he was a hippie from they let him do it, right? Yeah. So I saw Fleischer first in the 70s, of course, because I was doing the clubs around LA before I went back to Chicago. And those are the guys that you saw. It was him and the guy from Seinfeld, rushes in the door all the time.
Oh, Michael Richards.
So he was always there playing with his plastic boulders, on stage. Yeah.
Right.
So those are your contemporary people, and then boom, and you see it, and it's great, and you're happy for them, and
Yeah, it's weird because I grew up on comedy and like reading about all that kind of stuff, and every time I've got like stand-ups on, I'm always like, oh, you were in this book I read back in the day. It seems like with any kind of entertainment, though, TV, radio, whenever people figure out how to make money off of it, then it becomes, like you said, the plantation thing, because all the stuff you're talking about seems like there was just a level of freedom, where you were not constrained by the club owner needing the money and whatever. Like you guys got to play, they handled the drinks and stuff, and that was it. And now it seems like, I'm constantly up against it is, every club thinking they're an A room, every, you're not allowed to bomb here. You're not allowed to play, and I can't imagine anybody getting on stage with army figures anymore. Yeah. And then just having a go at it.
Yeah. Part of it was how many comedy clubs were there in the 70s? I mean, really, they were just opening, they were just beginning. So you got to play whatever was available. And they had no idea what stand-up night was.
Right.
So that evolves, that kind of stuff. And also what I say now is that there aren't any producers anymore. There's only landlords.
Oh, that's a great point.
It's all about the real estate now. It's not about anything else.
Absolutely. And it's such a shame too, because I feel like I can't stand when, somebody will say something along the lines of like, oh my God, that's a great comedy club. That's a great comedy room. And I want to be like, no, that's a building. The people you saw are great.
Yes, right.
They're what make it great. Because I hate when the room is bigger than the performers.
Yeah.
I think it kind of sucks the life out of it. It makes people feel like, like special just for being there. And I want to be like, that place is going to come and go.
Yeah. And it constrains you even in the performance. Cause if Mitzi's sitting up in the window watching your act, there's a little bit of there's a little intimidation there, or could be.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. I don't care, but people do. They're trying to please an outside source that gets to say how much time you do, how do we develop you,
right?
That kind of type of stuff.
Well, it's even weird too because like nobody, I always try to tell people now because it took me a little bit when I was younger, but I think I shook it off a little earlier because you say like no comedy club can make or break you in the same way with any kind of because they'll try to make you feel like that.
Yeah, even Jamie wants to make you feel like he owns you at the beginning, right?
Absolutely. And it's such a weird thing because I'm like, I'm not even making a living yet. So how could you own me?
Yeah.
Right? It's so weird. I'm like, because that is how it is. If you're making hand over fist money wise, I'm like, I get why they're fighting over me. But if I'm not even a draw yet, why do you care where I work?
Yeah. Yeah. So we worked we worked everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you guys know, I mean, you even taught Mike Myers, right?
Well, I didn't teach Mike. I hired him up in Toronto. So he came in and they're trying to replace somebody. And there were people that obviously didn't like him for whatever reason. And I said, you never had a guy like this.
Right.
When they brought me up in the office, and I saw him, there isn't a Second City guy that exists like this guy. And he had this suburban, over his head in intelligence person, like the garage kid, the Wayne, doing Shakespeare, right?
Right.
So it's like, you haven't had this guy. You haven't had this character. And so they hired him. And Jim Yaddo, who was his kind of assistant, called me up and said that Mike mentioned me when he got his Hollywood Walk of Fame star.
Yes.
Yeah. And but I didn't groom him at all. He was already funny. Same thing with Farley, already funny. I just pointed out the Second City is that you don't want to keep cookie cuttering. You don't want another Bill Murray, right? Not because it's bad, but because you want somebody that you haven't seen before. Right. Nobody had seen a Colbert on the Second City stage. Nobody had seen a Farley on the Second City stage. Nobody had seen a Jane on Second City stage. Nobody had seen Amy Sedaris on the Second City stage. In fact, their first night, I'm sitting in the audience because I hired them. And there's an actor sitting next to me, and he sits down and he goes, "Who hired the dirtballs?"
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you said you had done some stand-up. Jane, have you ever tried stand-up or any kind of curiosity?
No, never. I have a huge admiration for stand-ups, and I love watching them hone. If you get to see them over and over again while they're working.
Yeah.
But no, I have a great admiration for them, although I've been having a major problem with the current crop or a segment of the current crop.
Sure.
So I don't know about that.
It's an odd, I know exactly what you mean. And it's kind of weird because I don't know always what direction it's going in, but I think it's all about, money at this point too. Cause I feel like it's the same. Are you talking about, I'm assuming we're talking about like the podcasting side of it. And that's just kind of like,
no,
you're talking about the
people showing up for open mics and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't know. I'm out of that loop in LA right now.
I was at an open mic recently that I don't really want to talk about.
Okay.
I will just say to you that it was like a fucking Trump rally.
Jesus. Oh,
I'm still upset by it. And I've had conversations with some of the people involved, and the shit they say about why that's okay is really, I don't know. It's really frustrating to me. Like the one guy, I kind of the point I was making is like, who the fuck's going to hire you with this garbage you're saying on stage?
right.
And he points to some guy who's actually making money saying that garbage on stage. Like, oh, well, so like there's one break. It's like the odds thing that Jeff was talking about earlier, right? Like you're going to be the next guy that breaks because nobody wants to hire. And this made me crazy. He started this whole speech about, I don't need Hollywood, and he talked about that thing. Like there's all these platforms. Oh, I don't need Hollywood to be in my game. And I'm like, I walked away, but it's like, you don't know, you're talking to a person who has spent her life fighting gatekeepers.
Yeah.
I'm on your side.
Right.
I think you're right. I don't think anybody should stop you from doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Really. I think, why you're here tonight? Because I have a comedy club.
Right.
Because I wouldn't let anyone stop me from doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So but what you're saying basically is Hollywood, I'm a drop in the bucket of Hollywood. Right. I don't need Hollywood. Okay, you're right. But now you're just in it. Now, instead of being a drop in the ocean, you're a drop in all fucking 7 seas, dude. Like, what the fuck? Are you crazy?
Good point. Yeah.
The one thing he said to me was, no, television's over. And it made me go, really? Because pretty much wherever I go, when people don't know what to talk about, they talk about what they're watching on television. Don't they? Yes. I mean, an occasional podcast, I guess people might bring up, but that's it. Yeah. No one's talking about live streaming, blah, 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 or, you know what I mean? They don't. Right. So, yeah, I mean, let's, you can see that I have.
I'm impressed that you're still going to the open mics to check. I haven't been to an open mic to check out any. Like, it's such a shame because sometimes I go, do I even like stand up? Because I'm like, I never go to hang out at any of the places.
Oh, the same way with improv. I don't go see
Oh.
anybody's improv show.
Yeah.
I don't. No,
Right.
none of us do. None of us do. None of
It's
us
weird,
improvise
right?
people. No, we don't go.
Well, if somebody invites me, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. If I go to see a friend, like, I think the last open mic I went to, obviously pre-COVID, was because a friend was like, it was funny. It was a friend who had come from LA, moved to LA, and she was like, I'm doing Dangerfields, and she was really excited about it, but I didn't want to be like, it's all right. Like, so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I had to go down there, and the guy who was running the thing was such a fucking asshole. He's actually running the comic strip now, which means I'm not going there anytime soon.
Mhm.
But he was an independent producer at Dangerfields, which obviously closed. And he was just a piece of shit. And he was like doing shots at the bar, running this show. He had a scam going. You know, every comic had to bring like 15 people.
Yeah,
you know?
bringers they call them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And the
and
comics
then
go, is it a bringer?
Yeah. Oh,
because they can't get anybody to come and see them.
No. And how do you even develop when it's a bringer show? Because you're worried about your friends who've come to see you a million times. If you don't have new material, they're never going to come back. If you can't work on your new material because you're only doing bringers, it's like you don't develop that way. It's terrible.
Yeah, and for the club, it's just about selling the damn drinks. So what the fuck?
And you're not really a producer because you're not putting together a show.
Dude, oh my God, I can't even tell you how happy I am to hear you say that, because it's really upsetting to me that, like, I feel like a lot of these clubs waive all rights to getting asses in the seats. Yeah. And I'm like, well, then how could you just have the same 7 fucking comedians cycled in and out, who people are going to get tired of seeing it.
Yeah.
It's
the amazing thing to me on the heartening side of all this is how many really good people there are out there.
Yes.
There's some fucking great people out there that no one's ever heard of, both as improvisers and stand-ups, and
Yeah. Oh, was it Cicely Strong on SNL the other night?
Yeah.
That was brilliant, and it was so personal and so powerful, and everything it's one of those things that you're going to remember forever because it was just a breakout moment for a human being, but also in how she had to craft that, and you realize she did have to craft that way,
right?
And you go, so it's both brilliant, but it was also a necessity, and it was also very personal and very universal, and it was like it just takes your breath away.
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't seen anything like that from SNL in a really long time, so it was a nice moment. Yeah, I also happen to be watching it live, which I never do. I always catch it later.
That's her Colbert moment. That's her Colbert moment.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you guys. I feel like I've kept you longer than I said I was going to keep you, so I apologize if you guys have to peace out.
Well, you have to squeeze stuff in too, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I got a couple more questions, just in general. One before I ask the main two is your writing styles, because you guys have come up together, work with improvisers and stuff like that too. Are they completely different in terms of, like, do you feed off your improvisational skills? Because you both, like you said, you both come from different kind of areas in that respect. Yeah. But when you're writing, does that flip? Does it change? Do you kind of work with?
I think Jane crafts more than I do in a great way. I mean, her stuff is brilliant. Mm-hmm. But she has her thing that she's trying to draw on, and she doesn't present it until it's absolutely what she wants and absolutely perfect. And it's
nice.
I have ADD. So,
I build tables.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just
build tables with really fancy legs.
I leave big holes in what I'm doing.
Okay.
So if you look at my scripts, there's just big holes. And it's like, this happens. And when I do it, it's just going to be me filling the hole that night.
Right.
So,
but then that's also probably how you guys complement each other. If you're working together, one fills in the other.
Yeah. Jane, I used to say at Second Cities, I could tell where we were in the show by watching Jane. Because in ETC, we did a lot of really open things where you were doing a lot of improvisation within the sketch. Mm-hmm. And so people would do riffs, and then, a moment I go, where the hell are we in the scene? Right? How do we latch back onto this? And then Jane was the steady person that was just, bam, I could look at it and go, oh, this is where we're at.
Because I have to know what the idea is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, it all comes back to that.
Right.
Okay, so I've got 2 questions for you guys that we ask every guest. You can answer them individually if you can. One of them is, if you can go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice that would help you today, what would it be?
Get a publicist.
It's a good piece of advice.
Yeah, well,
except I don't know what they do, but I do agree with you.
Well, somebody told Jane about was it about Rosie O'Donnell? Well, when Rosie did the baseball movie.
Oh, League of Their Own.
Yeah, she hired a publicist at the back end, and so 3 months at the back end, and then 3 months, and that's what gets you on the talk shows, because people will go, they'll ask a publicist, do you have anybody from? They'll say who they want from the baseball movie,
right?
Say, well, I can't get Madonna, but Rosie O'Donnell. And so she's doing her first talk shows. Right. So basically what they said was, you're taking that money that you made on that first movie and you're investing in a publicist so you could get your second movie.
Wow.
And that was really good business advice. A lot of people know that. I didn't know that.
I wish I'd paid attention at the time.
Right. And for me, it would be just what we just talked about a little while ago. If somebody's complimenting you or doing something, don't challenge them. Just accept it.
Yeah, just
let them be full of shit.
Say thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? I won't tell you who it is. I'll maybe after, if you guys hang out for like a couple of seconds in the back, whatever. But there is somebody that I'm close with now, and I've been on their show several times, who thought I was on their previous TV show, and I've never corrected them.
Yeah.
And every time they introduce me when I'm on the show, they mention the last show that I was on with them. I have never been on it. I don't think I've ever seen it, but they just say it, and it's now a credit, and I've never corrected anybody.
Hopefully they'll never watch this podcast.
Yeah, I hope. I'll edit it out.
Jane had like that too. Her hiring at Second City, the producer had thought she was somebody else's roommate.
Yeah, that was a really weird thing when I was auditioning, and I was very nervous, right?
Yeah.
I'm on stage, and Joyce Sloan said to somebody, "This is Jane Morris." She goes, "This is Jane, and she is so-and-so's roommate." And I'm like, no, I'm Jane Morris, and I don't know who that is.
Right.
But it didn't stop there, because then I got called back, and I was, again, literally on stage. And now she's actually walking through the house with Dell during my audition. And I hear her say, "That's Jane. She's Mike's roommate." And I'm like, no, again, I'm not.
Right.
So for all I know, they just hired me because I was somebody's roommate. And
that's so
but
funny.
they did like me there. So
yeah. If it's a positive thing and it's not too egregious, I do kind of go like, I'm just gonna go with this for right now, and maybe I'll correct them if I know them later.
No idea what she was talking about.
Yeah. It's so, because sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes it's actually such a nice thing that I'm like, that's a better memory than the memory we actually have together. I'm gonna let you keep that one.
Yeah.
That's
I'm doing
nice
them a favor. Yeah, right. It's
often introduce me and have a story about us together that I don't know or remember or anything.
Yeah, that's the funny thing too, especially with comedians. I feel like they're so ego driven, and they also are conscious enough to try to come down off their ego that you can literally go up to any comic and go, "You were this and we were here," and they'll go, "Fuck. Yes, you're right. We were there together," and whatever. And you're just like,
I find comics both ego and a really sensitivity and a vulnerability too.
I agree, and I think that always kind of fights with each other, which is why they're like,
absolutely.
So it's not narcissism.
No,
because there's that open side to it. We've met comedians that are narcissists, right?
Sure,
and nobody likes them, right? But but mostly there's a real humanness underneath, and it's
absolutely
the struggle of being a stand-up it's a tremendous struggle.
It is, and the ego, I think, kind of comes into play. Like again, like you were saying, like there's a sensitivity and stuff. You always try to balance that out, keep it in check. The ego comes from trying to figure out your self-worth in an industry that's constantly telling you should work for free.
That's right.
So you're like, you got to build that up enough to be like, I'm worth more than that, but also you're fighting your natural vulnerability and kind of wanting to connect.
That's right.
It's a weird thing. So the last question I have is, what had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are right now?
For me, honestly, it was kind of twofold. I had a notion that we were going to do, when we had the comedy club that I started with. I had this notion we were going to do plays, and we tried, and it was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
St. Nick Theater was right around the corner from us. St. Nicholas was where David Mamet started.
Mm-hmm.
He was there in residence doing, like there was no way. So I started doing our own thing, and then going from there to Second City was, I had said to the people at my little comedy club, don't let me get sucked into there. Like, don't let me not see you guys anymore and hang out with you guys anymore, because I'm not at Second City. I know that happens to people. It's like some vortex.
Right.
And it was instant.
Wow.
In the vortex, boom. I rarely saw those people anymore.
Yeah, I didn't. My friends too, but they were dangerous people, and I didn't know they were dangerous people. But I think for me, it's like not being alone was the big kind of transition. I tended to fade like completely, and just shut down in periods where I didn't have anybody around me. So in a way, Jane pulled me out.
Literally, his door at that point and to his apartment, the hinges were off. So when you opened it, it just fell in like a drawbridge.
Then you pick it up and lock it. And
oh my God, that's great.
But that was in between a real successful time and then getting to Second City and being the outsider there.
Right.
And when you're the outsider, then it's like you're not making any headway at all. And
sure.
For some reason, Jane coming along and teaming up with me was just, it changed everything. Changed the way people treated me. It's weird. It was a weird phenomenon. But I think it was more of a pathological thing on my end than it was a reality. It's just like...
when I first got hired, I was treated as like the golden girl, the new golden girl.
Mm-hmm.
And any open slot show place, they put me in there.
Yeah.
Until we became the Jeff, Jim, and Jane problem.
Yeah.
By that time, we were unstoppable. So
I was a dangerous invader.
Yeah.
I was the guy that already worked, already got news things, boom, boom, boom. And I'm invading a space and competing against a lot of people. And I never felt like I was competing against them, but they certainly.
Also, you're another one of those guys, Jeff, that didn't fit their mold.
No.
They had that mold. They had the sharp guy, the blue collar guy, the fat guy, and the clown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff is none of those things. I guess he's blue collar, but he's also the smart guy, right? So the smart blue collar guy was like, what?
Yeah.
He can't talk like that. Meanwhile, they're on the other side of their mouth. They're telling you play to the top of your intelligence. Yeah. It's one of the rules, right? It's a good rule. Keep it.
One of the producers said to me that I was betraying the proletariat.
What does that even mean?
Yeah. What the fuck?
I'm not acting like the them and those guys.
Right.
And that's where he wanted me to come from and be that guy. Right.
Brutal.
And it wasn't, there were other guys at the time, a New York guy, I forget his name, who was a philosopher. He was on the waterfront, and he's a famous philosopher. And I was always interested in whatever came up, I'm going to dig into it and find out what it is. And I was getting laughs doing that. It just wasn't, I didn't fit the...
Right. And once you don't fit whatever's in their head, they don't fucking want to make room. I don't know why.
Right.
No matter how well it's working.
So we made room, and I made room for that. And
nice.
We made our own room, which was so ironic about that kid. Like, you don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah, that is. It is kind of shitty when they have no fucking idea where people they think they're the only ones that are coming.
You know what? It's forgivable because I was that kid too, and it is forgivable, but. And it's frustrating though when you're old and you're just an old lady, that they're talking to. It's pretty depressing.
It doesn't even. I feel like it doesn't even. I mean, I don't consider. I'm like I said, I'm gonna be 37 in a couple of weeks or whatever. But there's still people that don't give a fuck. Like, I used to be that guy in high school with my friends, and if they didn't understand who Jack Benny was, I'd be like, the fuck, like that's all they're doing. Like, so I love Zach Galifianakis, who I love, right? He's great or whatever. But he did this sketch on Comedy Central at the time where he was talking about physical humor, and he fell down a hill, and I was like, that's hilarious, and I was like, but how basically physical humor isn't funny. You know what I mean? And it's demeaning, but he does all this shit. And I'm like, that's hilarious. And it's really funny. I'm like, but Dick Van Dyke did it. And the Dick Van Dyke, and my friends are like, nope, don't want to hear it. And I was
Buster Keaton did it.
Yeah,
all the way down.
Yeah. So I'm like, it just go, which I have no problem with any of that too. I'm like, Galifianakis did it hilariously and in a different way, but I was like, come on, like it should still be, but nobody fucking gives a shit.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He's totally a physical comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And stand-up was different because he did the thing from the piano.
Oh God, stuff, so good. The Purple Onion special is just fucking brilliant. And I'm happy he almost never did another one because that's just crystallized.
Yeah. But he really is a physical comedian. Right down to it, So
even Due Date with him and Robert Downey, like all the stuff he did to half of that movie. I mean, it wasn't a great movie, but it was right. Is it Tom? You're muted again. It was or you're low.
You heard me say I thought it was a good movie.
You know what's funny? I saw your lips move, and I just read that. This is how
it was a good movie. It was a good movie.
But it wasn't. I liked it. Like I don't think it got rave reviews, but it was very much like a planes, trains, and automobiles. But it's Robert Downey who's fucking brilliant, and Galifianakis who's hilarious. And but a lot of the stuff in that movie was physical, and it was hilarious.
Yeah,
so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, the people. A lot of the people that emerge are just fantastic.
Yeah,
and it's like, and you get the sense of them dealing with irony and nuance, and you go, no, that's what makes them different is the nuance and not the style, right?
Right.
It's the fact that they're aware of what their style is and how they're playing it and how they interpret scripts through it.
Right. Yeah, interpreting the script is like,
and how they can be themselves in that.
Right. I'm just hoping some director makes a mistake on me and picks me to do a thing. That's all I'm waiting for. Everybody makes a mistake. Right?
A lot of times that's exactly what it is. It's like you get that chance to do something and then that's who you are for a while.
Right.
It's going to be one of those guys that says he knows who you are, that doesn't know who you are at all. And he thinks you were in something that you're really great in.
I hope so.
And you weren't.
Yeah.
And then you'll get famous on the count of that.
Oh, that would be beautiful. Hey, that would be
so
great.
4 or 5 of those guys with different projects.
I'm just going to keep changing my look until I look like somebody that somebody else famous knows. That's what I'm just going to keep doing.
Who's that kid that's on Silicon Valley?
He
has a
little ditch or something. That guy?
No, the guy who's the son of the friend of yours, Jane.
Oh yeah. What is his name? Oh, I can't think of his name.
But anyway, you have that look too.
Oh, great.
Of the guy and that thing. He's got long hair and he's he just says smart, outrageous, insulting things to his partner.
He was in that movie we didn't like the other night. That terrible movie, that superhero movie that's so bad. The Spider-Man one.
No, Eternals, you mean? Oh, he was in Spider-Man?
Yeah, that guy was in a bad Spider-Man movie. He was good in it. I mean, he fulfilled his function.
We got to talk about this for a second because I've seen all the Spider-Man movies, so I got to know which one you're thinking of. Is it the Andrew Garfield when he's Spider-Man or Tom Holland?
I don't know.
Okay, wait. I got to figure this out. We're just going to take another 3 hours. What is the? I'm just kidding. Wait, who?
The kid's on a class trip, and Tony Stark is dead, and he goes on a class trip to Italy, and then Jake Gyllenhaal is the.
Jake Gyllenhaal's in it. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Oh, you didn't like that one? I loved that one. Okay. Wait. Okay. So the guy who's in it, then I think you're talking about.
He's the most recent Spider-Man, really. That guy.
It's Tom Holland. Yeah. It's Tom Holland. I'm trying to think of the person you're talking about. It's the one who is. I know who is it?
I don't know. I got to look it up. I'm trying to find the.
This is gonna be it's gonna drive me crazy. But I think I know who you're talking about now. I just can't think of his name. But he's Jeff left us.
He's trying to find that guy's name.
He's like, I'm done.
Look up the guy's name and he knocked himself off.
Exactly. Yeah. I wonder if he's gonna pop back in.
It's okay. The nurse will be through soon and help him.
We come back. He's on like a strap to dialysis. Give me a.
I think I found it. I think it's Martin Starr.
Martin Starr is the guy.
Martin Starr is the guy. Okay.
I lost. Yeah. I got lost.
It's Martin Starr.
Yeah, Martin Starr is his name. That actor that we were talking about. Yeah.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yes. Oh,
he's
great.
A hilarious human being.
I'll take it.
Yeah, very funny.
Yeah, you're right. We do.
Sometimes I get his Clipper seats.
Oh wow, that's very nice.
And we still don't know his name. Isn't that a shame?
If I get something that was meant for him, I will also give you my Clipper seats.
Okay, good.
Because I can't.
I want to go to the game Sunday. They're playing the Bulls. And
oh, okay. Yeah, let me work. Let me get to a movie real quick. But thank you. Seriously, I love you guys so much. So thank you for coming on and doing this. And I hope you had a good time.
It's been a pleasure.
Excellent.
I would just say that this look that you have right now, that's your sales pitch.
Thank you. I will work.
Character, be that guy.
I will.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And look at Tom nodding his head like, yes, make us some money.
And the other advice I have is do your own shit. Just do.
Oh, yeah. That's what we started this during the pandemic and just rolled with it. So we've been having some luck with it so far.
Yeah.
And then, still
have you interviewed Fugelsang?
I have. I've interviewed Fugelsang. He's been on. I'm always on his thing. We're actually going to do a show together. So we're going to go do some stand-up together for the first time.
He's a perfect bookend.
Compliment.
Yeah,
very much so.
It's really funny. We kind of whenever I am on Sirius, whenever I go in there, people always either comment on the fact that we both have long hair. Like,
does he have long hair? I haven't seen him in so long.
I used to coach him on his stand-up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and my thing with him was for him to connect.
Yes, I'm on his show on the 18th. I'll tell him you said hi.
He's a brilliant guy.
He is.
But his early on thing was that if he felt like he was over your head, he would drop the audience, and it's like, no, just
keep going. Yeah,
it's connect with them. Don't judge them. They'll be fine.
It's so fun. Yeah, he's so fast on his show.
Yeah,
so smart. And it's funny because he'll introduce me and he'll, he's very complimentary when he does it. Obviously, I'm a guest on his show, but each time he does it, he's like, one of the smartest guys out there. And I want to be like, just tone it down. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm an idiot on his show 9 times out of 10.
You got to come out drooling.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, say hi to him. I love that guy too. He's a good guy.
He's great.
Yeah, tell him we said hi. We miss him. I haven't seen him in a while.
Absolutely. There's a list of people I have to. Shelley Goldstein mentioned you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like literally almost every guest we've had on the show who's involved in improv in some way has talked about the both.
Yeah, I always describe myself of the Zelig of comedy. I'm in all the pictures and all the books somewhere, and it's, but
yeah, all the black and white
me.
photos.
I've been disappeared, but okay.
You're the bartender that fades out in The Shining. Everyone's like, where'd they go?
I wander outdoors more. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm always been walking around the neighborhood forever, and that's what I still do is show up.
What you're saying is you're the Argus Hamilton of improv. You're basically just still wandering around the comedy store. I know. And contextually about that guy's name, but I feel like he's like the ghost of the comedy store half the time.
But he was also promoted up the wazoo by Mitzi. So that's what made him someone, and that the other comics felt like, there's better comics here,
Absolutely.
So I don't want a bad mouth. A lot of people loved him and stuff, but
no, I know what you mean. I feel like I know a little bit about whatever, but it was one of those things where like I think when you would go to the comedy store, it was almost like people would just mention the guy's name, and to me, I was just like, before I knew who he was, I was just like, what is going on? Like I don't understand. But it was very much like somebody that still lives in the walls there, Yeah. Isn't that a weird thing to say? I don't even know, but I swear to God, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, that's. I would say that's still probably the case. I've been on the Comedy Store Players website because I played there too.
Yeah.
And they have their own legends. They have their own structure of legends and who was in the building and how important they were and everything else. And, did you know Cork Hubert?
No.
He would have been before John's time.
Yeah, I don't know him.
He's a little guy, but at the Comedy Store regular all the time. He hung around with Sam Kinison.
Oh, okay. Well, I was friends with Carl Above, and he was the first person when I got out to LA who took me to the Comedy Store. I'd never been there before, and I told him I was out in LA, and he was like, "Have you?"
I think by the time you came to LA, Cork was gone.
Cork was
I was in there. 2015.
Overton. What's it? It's like one of these sword movies with there were two little people in it.
Right.
Actually, Overton was one of the little people. It was in someone's hands, but Cork was a co-star in that.
I don't think
Cork was a co-star in
Willow?
Belle at the Sad Cafe.
Yeah.
But Overton was a little person in what's Willow?
Willow.
Yeah.
Willow.
But then Cork was in the other one that was a swordy, dragony thing that I can't remember, wasn't he? I can't remember now.
Oh my god!
I just remember Belle at the Sad Cafe. He's like a major.
Cork's one of those guys. When I think of the Comedy Store, I think of Cork and that whole Kinison entourage. All characters. They used to come to Second City too, and sit up in the balcony.
Wow.
And, make noise and were fun, but there's a lot of There's a lot of, in all these structures, the Improv too, which is a whole different, that kind of New York connection with comics, with older comics, and then with what's his name, Andy Kaufman.
Oh yeah.
So Andy, Michael Richards used to play the Improv late at night, and Kaufman had license there to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd drive up with Bomb Zumba,
yeah,
and he'd open the back door and roll in a washer and dryer, and hook it up, and then and everyone's canceled, even Robin, right?
Right.
It wasn't big then, so we'd be waiting to go on, and we'd all have to. Kaufman's here, so we, basically our act's canceled unless we stay here until 4 a.m.
Wow.
And sometimes it was brilliant, and sometimes it was just you're just going, why you're just wasting time. You're reading Shakespeare, doing your laundry, and you're just aggravating everybody.
Right.
But there's a whole legendary thing within the Improv too, of acts like him and other acts that were always welcomed by Bud, no matter what time they came in, whatever happened. So I don't know the hierarchies, but that was one of them, and it was very very interesting.
Yeah, we've had guys where we talked about that kind of stuff. I feel like the Comedy Store and the Improv are always going to be the two clubs that are. That's one of those rare times where I said earlier maybe they don't, but the building kind of almost supersedes.
You should see Midler's husband. You should have him on the show.
Oh, who?
He was one of the Kipper kids. Look up the Kipper kids on YouTube.
Okay, I will.
It's insane. They were an insane duo.
Okay.
Crazy. They come up in wrestling uniforms and hold a big concave glass in front of them and not even speak English, just grunts and wrestling. I mean, it had to be where Kaufman got his wrestling thing from, watching the Kipper kids do this stuff. But he's still around.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, he was in the Dylan movie.
Oh, okay.
The one
I saw that.
The Thunder Road or whatever.
Yeah, Thunder. Yeah.
He plays. I don't know if he plays a manager or something in that, but he's in that. He's tremendous, and that act was just insane.
I have to look them up.
You'll know all the history from all that time.
Wow. I will. Yeah, those are the rooms that I feel like just have that. They're just locked in, man. Those are. I mean, I've done the Comedy Store when I went out there too, and it does feel intimidating no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't understand. It just
Improv
has that feel.
Looser. Improv was looser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's weird. But again, would you guys want to plug you got a show coming up next weekend, right?
Yes, it's what do we call that show, Jane?
We don't call it anything. It's the Fanatics Salon. We do the Transformers, Bucket of Snakes, Mr. Johnson, and a group called Waterbrains, and it's all improv all night.
Beautiful.
For that, I have a show running right now called The Zigzag Girl. We got one more show on next Sunday. And Jeff teaches every Saturday, and I teach writer performers. So
I have an online show. There's only been 2 episodes so far called We Pollock, and it's an international show. We're going to add things like people from different continents doing in the same show.
Nice.
And so far it's been pretty good. But we only got 2 done, so we'll see what happens after that.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll plug all that stuff. And again, thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast talking to you.
Your
both.
pleasure.
Yep. Hope to see you guys
It was fun.
soon.
It was good to see you too.
Yep. Good to see you as well.
Your actual face and stuff.
I know. I know.
Just arguing with you on Facebook.
You know what I gotta say though?
Opinions.
I know, but I love it because I feel like we both are on the same page most of the time, and then every now and again, every now and again. But you always kind of, I feel like we have good conversations and not necessarily.
Yeah, so I don't mean to attack people. I think sometimes I come off as attacking, but I don't mean to. It's like
everybody comes off as attacking because we're all angry when we're posting. So when somebody can say hi, and we'll read it like, "What'd you say it like that for?" But I love you. I always get like a little bit of a high whenever you share one of my posts because I respect you a lot, and I'm always like, oh that's sweet. You shared one of my posts. It's very nice.
It's good. Yeah,
it's always like that. It's just fun talking to you guys. So I'll be out in LA at the end of January. So hopefully,
look us up by all means.
Absolutely, I'm gonna drop in. I want to see more shows and stuff and just hang out.
Maybe you can do a show.
Oh, I would love to.
It'll be a bringer though. Just so
nice.
Oh, what a great way to
even
end
for
it.
you and the audience, you have to bring.
The audience too. Oh my God! Thank you so much, guys. I love you both.
A bunch of homeless people under the underpass.
They could use the bathroom. It'll be good.
I'll bring them too. But I know. Oh my God! One of the things I wish somebody had told me. I was living in Downey at one point when I was out in California, which it was all right. But I went for a bike ride, and nobody at any point in time told me that I would run into just people on horseback or just horses. And I'm riding my bike down the ravine, and all of a sudden there's like, I don't know, people dressed like, I mean, I guess they were, I don't know what the fuck they are, but they were just like, there was like a horse running alongside as I'm riding my bike on the thing. And I was like, is this supposed to happen? Or am I riding too far?
Are these horses going to spook my bike?
That's what I'm titling this episode. Are these horses going to spook my bike?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Great.
Take care. What do we do? You click?
Thank you so much. I got you. No problem.
Okay.
Thanks again.
It's gonna shut us off. God damn it.
Are these horses gonna spook my bike? That fucking got me.
Dystopia tonight.